is about the 4 methods of tax appraisal. So when you get ready to appeal your taxes, you can size up what is the method that is used for appraising your property and whether or not you want to appeal it at all. And if you do, maybe a little tip on how you can research for that particular method. Keep in mind you owe it to your family and yourself to make sure the value of your home is fair. Don't let the veneer of the complexity scare you. Don't let the potential complexity intimidate you from asserting your rights for yourself or your family. I have a subsequent video that's going to tell you the strategy within the appeal. This is just to map out the 4 basic methods so you know sort of the way the game is played. The first thing you want to find out is what was the method that was selected by your tax appraiser in the county that you're at. If you get the tax appraisal form like I did, it doesn't tell you there. You just see the number of the previous year and then you see the number of what the property value is appraised for this year, but it doesn't tell you how they arrived at that number. Well, as it turns out, there are 4 different methods. The first is called the cost approach. The second is called the income approach. The third is called the MRA approach. And the fourth is called the market approach. So one of those 4 is going to be selected as the primary method for your property. How do you find that out? Well, since it's not on the form that you get, when you send off your appeal, you will get, if you request it, a data sheet, which is called the property report card. And on the back side of that, here on where they have final values, which is a little area toward the middle here, it tells you that. And I'm going to zoom in with this a little bit. It probably won't focus well, so I'm going to put this up on a separate slide for you to look at. And this one says MKT, which means market approach. You can log on to the website for the appraiser's office and scroll down to that area that says final values, and then there'll be a row that says value method, and then beside that it will mention which one of those 4 methods is going to be used. So let's go over those 4 methods. The first one is the cost method. The cost method is simply the appraiser's office looking at what it would cost to rebuild your property. In other words, if they got all the building materials and contractors and rebuilt your house top to bottom and then took the depreciation of the age off, what would that cost? That's the cost method. And they use a company called Marshall Swift, which goes by zip code around the country and looks at how much lumber and concrete and nails and shingles and all the things that go into building a house, what they cost for that particular zip code. And then they compile that in with what builders would charge to rebuild a house, and that's how they arrive at the cost method. If you're having the cost method used in your property, you're going to need to talk to an appraiser to sort of fight that battle, because that one is very involved, and quite frankly, I think it's probably the most inaccurate of all the methods, because the Marshall Swift data is an index and it's extremely unreliable in my opinion as an economist. But there you go, that's the cost method. The second method is called the income method. The income method is very, very simple really. It's for income generating properties. So if you're a landlord and you have a rental property, they might be using this for you. If you're just a layman having a residential property, I'd be very surprised if they would ever use this on you unless you bought a house that used to be a rental. The method that is used here is they take the monthly rent and they multiply that times a gross rent multiplier, and then that gives you a final result. What's the gross rent multiplier? Well, numerically, forever and ever and ever, investors in real estate would use the 120 rule. In other words, whatever the monthly rent is, you multiply that times 120, that would tell you what your value is. Simple example. You have $1,000 in net rental times 120, that property is worth $120,000. Pretty simple, right? In Douglas County, I regret to say, they don't use 120 as the gross rent multiplier. They use like 130, 132, God knows what they're using now. I think it's pie in the sky, but that's what they use. If you're going to battle on income, then you probably need to make sure that the underlying rent is accurate, and then come up with your own sources for your gross rent multiplier, or hire an appraiser of your own. Let's go to the third method. That's called MRA, multiple regression analysis. Sounds kind of technical, right? Well, I've got a separate video that goes in detail on what that is. I'm going to give you just the Reader's Digest version here. Regression analysis is used a lot in finance, in economics, where you have a predictor variable and then a result variable. Example, let's say you and I have a bakery and we sell these chocolate chip cookies, gourmet chocolate chip cookies, and we sell them for $1, and we want to know what's the quantity that we're going to get. So our predictor variable is the price, and our response variable is how many we sell. So we price them at $1 and we sell 100 of them. We price them at $1.20 and then we sell 80. We raised the price, this went down. We think, well, maybe that's a one-off, maybe that's wrong. We bump the price up to $1.50 and then our sales drop down to 50. So the price is very much predicting what is going to be the end result in that variable. So it's a simple equation, and that's called linear regression. Multiple regression just adds some additional variables into the equation. Example on our cookies. So we realize that the price is one of the main engines that determines the quantity of cookies that we sell. But then we start thinking, well, wait a minute. The tastes of the cookie also play into it, because we had a couple times where it didn't taste so good and those sales didn't go so well. So we need to add that variable in. So we'll add price in as one variable, but the taste of the cookie is another. And then we start thinking, well, wait a minute, the size of the cookie matters, because we're not necessarily uniform. Sometimes they're bigger than others, and we notice when they're bigger they sell more. So we need to add an additional variable in of size. So we add multiple variables in, multiple predictor variables in, and thus the phrase multiple regression. So what happens on tax appraisals, the tax appraisal will select from a menu of options what are going to be the predictor variables that work for a particular property. So if the tax appraiser defaults to the computer and says the computer did this, that's not true. It's the monkey behind the keyboard, right? Somebody selected those variables, and mistakes happen. Example, in our cookie business, we decide that one of our bakers realizes that when Patrick Mahomes throws a touchdown, the day we sell cookies, we sell about 10% more cookies. So we need to put Patrick Mahomes touchdown totals as one of the variables. So now we have price as one variable, taste of the cookies another, size of the cookie, and now number of touchdown Patrick Mahomes throws on that day. So that's our equation. Well, then one of our other bakers comes and realizes, well, hold on. Realize that Patrick Mahomes plays on Sundays, because that's when the Chiefs play. So maybe we're wrong on the touchdowns as a variable, because after all, we sell our cookies in the morning usually, and the Chiefs don't even play till like noon or later, so that's probably not a good estimate. It's something else going on. And then we think about it and we realize it's because it's on Sunday. That's our extra percentage. Sales is on Sunday. It doesn't have anything to do with Patrick Mahomes and touchdowns. So the point is there may be some other reason for one of these variables out here other than what we thought. So we have to be able to make sure that each of our variables are accurate. And that's where the multiple regression problems come in, when they start stacking on variables that really shouldn't be there. The fourth method is market comparison. Market comparison was used in mine that I have here. Market comparison is when the appraiser's office will grab 3 other properties, and they think that they're similarly situated, that sold recently, and they take the values of those properties and they make some market adjustments. Maybe one of the properties that sold was a 4-bedroom and yours is a 3-bedroom, or that one had a garage and yours doesn't. they make adjustments mathematically so that that property then matches up, or supposedly matches up, with your property. And that's what they call market comparison. Now, here in Douglas County, they have added in a whole new variable called market conditions. And what they've done there is they've taken the sale price of that so-called similarly situated property and they've inflated it, they've padded it by an extra amount. How they came up with that, I have no idea. As an economist, I think the free market determines what the price of something is. You know, a willing buyer wants to pay as little as possible, a willing seller wants as much as they can get, and the free market forces determine what the sale price is, or at least that's your starting point. But they've changed the starting point. So more on that on the next video. Also, keep in mind the statement, the computer told me, or the computer says, or this is what the computer tells us, is not to be allowed. There is an ethical code that specifically says that is not to be utilized by tax appraisers. Think about it. When someone says, well, the computer said, they're shirking responsibility. Somebody entered the data into the computer. Somebody selected the variables in the computer. You know, it's always the monkey behind the keyboard that's making the mistake. It's not the computer doing it. So make sure you don't allow the appraisers to say the computer said. And in fact, I have a reference here that tells you where the ethical code is. You might Google that, print that out, and have that with you to make sure the appraisers don't attempt to do that. The other thing is, sometimes, because there are these four methods, and because they can be a little bit daunting and a little bit onerous to understand, it's not uncommon when the appraiser feels like they're losing the battle because you know more about your property than probably anybody does, they'll shift to a different method. So if you're arguing market comparisons and you have better market comparable properties that you've selected, and then they all of a sudden start shifting to the cost approach, hold on. They selected the method that was the best method. So don't allow them to jump ship to a different method, because that's sort of a whack-a-mole game and you don't want to play that. Stay focused on the method that was selected. So there are our four methods. Good luck on your appeal. I'll see you in the next video.